Right, good. Cathy's shared a screen. My name's Roger Woods. I'm the vicar of Kings Heath, an urban parish on the outskirts of Northampton. And with us is also Cathy Brazier, who's vicar of too many rural parishes than I can mention, between Oundle and Peterborough. And so Cathy's going to share something of what we've been thinking about over these, her and I, over these last couple of weeks or so. And then hopefully there'll be some time just for comments and questions at the end. And if you want to ask some questions as they come to your brain, just put them in the chat. I'll monitor them there, and then so Cathy can concentrate on what she wants to say. Cathy, over to you.
Thank you, Roger. Well, for full disclosure, neither Roger nor myself are professional or expert singers or musicians, although Roger does play the piano. Some of you may well have seen him playing at diocesan events. And I only once sang backing vocals for the Stranglers, but that doesn't make me a professional singer at all. Anyway, so we want to tonight just offer you our thoughts about music and singing and what we can actually do about music and singing at present. We would encourage you to keep checking on the updates too, because although we delivered this same information on Saturday, I finished doing my notes for it on Wednesday, only to discover that it had all changed by Thursday morning. So the information that you've got tonight is up to date today, but who knows when it will change again. So I'm going to share, I've got this screen share up with you, and this will, I have now, Roger, you don't need to remind me, I've put it on the Padlet.
Great, thank you.
So this is all up to date now, and it's on the Padlet board as well. So singing and music, as we know, don't we, is the lifeblood of our worship, and it's what helps the church flourish in its spirituality and its tradition. And of course, for many of us, certainly particularly in my multi-parish rural benefice, it has been a way, music and singing has been a way in which we raise funds for the church as well. So it's really not being able to sing has had a real effect on us in so many ways here. And at the moment, the advice is that there is congregational singing is still not allowed. So what do we do about singing? And we can actually sing with groups of singers themselves, which I find a bit remarkable, because actually if you can see, the capacity for your church can seat everybody in the choir, then it is congregational singing, really, isn't it? But anyway, will there be congregational singing at Christmas this year? I doubt it very much indeed. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of strategy, not too much, because a lot of that has already now been covered by Nolan and by Alison, but just to say that what we did in lockdown, we can do again. So if you've already been online in lockdown, and maybe some of you are still online, then what you do with singing and music, you can continue to do. And maybe that's where your planning for Christmas continues. Maybe that's where it has to start. And anything else, obviously, that you do in terms of music and singing will be a bonus. But be ready to adapt. So if you are doing online, do you need a bit of tech support? Particularly when it comes to the music aspect of things, the singing aspects of things. Have you got the support? Have you got the technical know-how to be able to put all of this together? And also, the one thing that you must be aware of is about the licensing. So there's a link to the CCLI website. Hopefully you'll all know about that, about the licensing, but it does list out of copyright in the public domain music for you to go and have a look at as well. And it also has a health check on there, so you can go in and put your information into there, and it will tell you whether you do need a license, and more importantly, how much it's going to cost you. Don't be surprised at the outcome. So a bit of strategy for indoors and a bit of strategy for outdoors, music and singing. What you do now for acts of worship still applies. The rule of 6 does not apply for a choir, but capacity in your church building does. You need to be able to sing safely at a safe distance, side by side, and all facing in the same direction. And if you need to do that multiple times in a multiple parish context, well, you need to be aware of overload. Outdoors singing and music might be better, and it might be key to your planning for Christmas. What you plan outdoors, can it be transferred to indoors at a later date if it's going to be easier? Of course, outdoors music and singing event, a service of worship is going to be dependent on the weather, and then how you communicate how people care for themselves in that as well. In your churchyard, having an act of worship in your churchyard is allowed, and it's to do with the capacity of your grounds as to how many people you can have there. But of course, then you have to think about, if you're going to have carols in at an evening time, you have to think about lighting, the health and safety aspect of it, and another risk assessment, because it's slightly different to the risk assessment you've done for your indoors services. I read just recently that if you seat people outdoors, it's easier to social distance them. So that's another thing that you have to take into consideration. Are you going to do that? So I'm going to give you a few ideas for online, indoors and outdoors. So online, whatever you've been doing already, if you are have been doing your services online, whether that's been recorded or live streamed, then that's something that you can carry on doing. But obviously, to record a choir, different people doing it at different times, and then sort of having to splice it all together, does take a huge amount of time and effort. And if that's going to become part of your Christmas, your full-on Christmas service, then yeah, I would say, as Alison said, start recording now, I think, to get it all done. The one thing that I would say about music and singing, if you're doing something recording or live stream, to use local people for your local context, over and above maybe what the national churches might be offering as a singing or music resource. Local people like to see local people, and that's particularly useful, obviously, if you're recording or you're live streaming something. What I would say, and you'll find a link to this on the Padlet board, is the Facebook Christmas, COVID and Church. It's a Facebook page called Christmas, COVID and Church, and you'll find the link to that on the Padlet board. It's really full of resources, not just about singing and music. I do recommend that to you if you're on Facebook. So an idea for indoors is that because you can use a choir that is obviously seated well away from the congregation and is COVID secure, that might be the way forward to do indoors. And I want to just give you a little example. I'm in a multi-parish rural benefice, and it's deeply embedded in the farming community, and we do harvest in a huge way here. And for the farmers here that come to the services, singing is vitally important as part of their worship. But of course, we weren't allowed to do that for all of the harvest services that I had. So what I did at each service was I invited a few people to become our pop-up choir. And actually, even though we'd had no rehearsal, we'd had no practice, the 2 and 3 and 4 people that sang as a little pop-up choir, those very traditional harvest hymns, was very well appreciated. So actually, you don't have to put in a lot of time and effort for singing and music, because it worked. Having a little pop-up choir worked really, really well. People really did appreciate it, and because they were the traditional harvest hymns, people knew the words. They were hung them behind their masks. Anyway, so 3 ideas for outdoors. Carol singing in your churchyard. It seems the most obvious one, but you have to use a specific number of people for a choir. The rule of 6 doesn't work. It's still to do with capacity. On my resources page on this screen, there's a link to things you can look up about numbers. So it's about the number of people that are actually designated as the choir. Okay, so still not congregational singing. Anyway, so you could think about singing in your churchyard, around a Christmas tree, around a nativity scene, using it as in an act of worship, and having a choir to sing. Outdoors as well, choir singing, carol singing around the streets, even multiple times. So here we would have maybe a little group in each village doing some carol singing around the streets. And one other idea that I'll just offer you is doorstep carols. So a little bit like we did for Clap for Carers, was you would send a programme around to your neighbourhood, and to say that at a certain time you will be singing this carol, and you know, hopefully within a village context you might hear it very well. I don't know how well that would work in an urban context, but certainly in a rural context in some villages it might work really well. So doorstep carols, where similar to what we did for Clap for Carers, using a programme, and if you've got the bandwidth you could use Facebook Live. So this is my page for resources. All of those links, my share screen is on the Padlet board, so you can go and have a look at those links there as well. I would highly recommend looking at the website of the Royal School of Church Music. It has the frequently asked questions, which I found to be the clearest of answering questions about music and singing. So certainly do go and have a look at that. So there's guidance there on the safe use of your spaces, the guidance on the risks of singing if you want to look a little bit closer at that, and then the about licensing as well. And the Church of England website is obviously, I'm sure you're already looking at it, is a good resource as well. Okay, that's my input.
Thank you. If you like to
yeah.
Just yes, right, so we can see everybody. Now I've had a question from Diane. Do you want to ask that? Unmute yourself and then ask to everybody so we can all have a go.
Sorry. Yes, I was just wondering, with the, you know, in the churches at the moment we're still distancing of 2 meters apart for everybody. Do choir members also have to be 2 meters apart from each other, as well as the 3 meters apart from people? You know what I mean?
Yes, they do, Diane. So from each other, and again, this is why it depends on the capacity of your church and where they can sit. So they need to be at least 2 meters apart from each other and facing in the same direction. So they can face the congregation, but they need to be a good distance away. I haven't yet found anything that says exactly how far away from the congregation they need to be.
I found somewhere that said it was 3 meters.
Oh, well, go with 3 meters or more then. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
And then Anne wanted to add something to the mix. Do you want to just share that with everybody in case they didn't see it? And unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still really quite baffled by the sort of regulations around singing. But just reading the most recent ones that you've brought up this evening, it looks as if your choir has, if you've got more than 6 people in your choir, then to get them all together, they've pretty much got to operate as social groups. So I'm thinking maybe families.
That's right.
And I don't think that's terribly clear.
No.
Because I think people are interpreting it as, oh, well, if we just divide it to 2 groups of 6, then
Yes.
it'll all be all right.
Yes.
And then they all get together, obviously, afterwards, which isn't.
My
No.
wife sent me a link of it was a secular music group about, you know, trying to sing again, and if you have a choir of 36, is that just 6 times 6? It's not as easy as that. You've really got to think of it as 36 times 1, really. Or if it was a family group, you could include more people together, because it's the gathering together and the socializing and all those kind of things. So, but I think if you were my feeling, and this is just a personal opinion, if you were trying to do things outside, perhaps some of these carol singing around your parish, whether it's a rural parish or an urban parish, I think smaller groups are better, so you attract less attention, really, and to try and do the right thing and seem to be doing the right thing. I mean, I think you probably could have more than 6, but I just think the lesser is just safer all around, really.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you very much.
John, do unmute yourself and then do ask your question or make your comment. That'd be great.
Well, no, yeah, it's just a comment on outdoor singing, because what we're looking at doing in our parish, and it's a very rural set of 3 parishes, is they have a drive-in carol service. You know, you've heard of carols by candlelight. Well, we're looking at carols by car headlight. And you can actually sing in the car. And it's one, you know, it certainly gets the benefits together. It might sound a bit American and a bit poncy, but I'll tell you, it does work.
You've done an outdoor drive-in service, haven't you, John?
Well, we've done 3 already.
Yeah,
we had outdoor harvest last week with 41 cars. So it's
yes, and if the rest of you go and have a look on the Padlet board, because there is a link to that drive-in service, one that John's done. So go and have a look at that. Yeah.
But it probably will be good
to farm, John, or how did you do it physically?
Well, we used a pub car park. In one occasion, we used a farmer's field. In another occasion, so council property is a no-go, I think, because they're so sensitive about offending other faiths. So you got to go to private land, really, or if you've got glebe land, you know.
And yes, I think on the Darson website or perhaps there is a short film of John's service. Also, there is a link to a document done by CPAS, Church Pastoral Aid Society, about carols by, you know, driving carols, and it's quite complicated, and it's good that John's already started, because I mean, one thing you might have to think about nearer Christmas time, the weather could be worse, and farmers' fields could be very soft, so they could be there for the whole of the 12 days of Christmas if you can't get your cars out after that. But actually, I was reading this earlier today and thinking, oh yes, this could be a possibility, and you know where would you do it? But in terms of sound and lighting and streaming the music through, it is quite complicated. So if it is something you are thinking about, I would do your research much sooner than later, because it's quite, but there was some quite detailed stuff.
Roger, just before we go back in I mean, school car parks as well, which are ideal. If you've got a church school, have a word with the head teacher.
And this thing called the Padlet board, which is like a big resource, like a whiteboard on the side of a church hall. Charlie Nobbs has put the link on there, and he'll talk about that more, I'm sure, before we all finish. But any just last comments before we go back to the main room? Well, thank you very much for coming to the music, and
thank you. See you in the big
Cathy,
room. Okay.
We'll go back to the main room.
Okay. Bye bye.